Morning, everybody. It's taking a little second to get everything all set. These attendees.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. All right, we're gonna pray that everything works well. My cords fell off and unplugged everything this morning, so I've been quickly trying to get it all back to working. I love technology. All right. Looks like everybody's coming in as panelists this time. I don't have to move them around. Oh, yeah, me.
Lisa, Kathy Coyle's here.
Hi, Kathy Coyle. All right.
Hi.
All right. You guys are seeing my screen right now with the flag in the background. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
We have a quorum.
Woohoo. Okay. And we have the lovely revised agenda is working. Okay. Let's see. We have quorum and I've stopped flipping out. I'll remind everybody that this time we've upgraded our webinar accounts and they've had updates. So if you would like to leave your, as a member and a community member, you can leave your videos on. It should not degrade the quality of the experience. So Chair Marino, you can take it away.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our September meeting. Before we begin, first we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, everybody. First, do we have any public comments? I don't see any.
Didn't get any, and I don't see any in the chat.
Okay, so I guess we'll move past public comment. We'll do the approval of the minutes, the August 19th minutes. Any questions or comments? Otherwise, we'll take a motion to approve. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved, Justin Willits.
Thanks, Justin.
Second, Kathy Coyle.
Thanks, Kathy. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Okay, so for our first action item, the reevaluation of the transit asset management pavement bridge and system performance targets. Johnny Wong.
Morning, everybody.
Morning, Johnny.
Thanks for having me here. Johnny Wong, Hillsborough MPO. I'm here to provide you with
All right, hold on. Let me get it to do slideshow on the screen.
all hear me? I think someone just accidentally muted me.
Okay, I'm gonna.
We can hear you,
attempt-
Johnny.
I'm gonna attempt to
Right.
make it show screen. Hold on.
All right, while you get that sorted, I'll keep introducing the topic. So we're required to provide peer
Did we lose him?
Yeah, for some reason he keeps cutting out. Looking to
periodic
see.
status.
Johnny, you keep cutting out. Do you have any idea why it is on your side?
No, I can hear you all pretty clearly. I'm sorry if I'm cutting in and out. How's that? Is that better? Or do you want me to call back in from my phone?
Now we can hear you. I
Okay.
don't know what's going on. All right, keep looking.
All right, so regardless, the 3 performance measures that we're providing an update on are transit asset management, pavement and bridge condition, and system performance. All 3 of these measures originate from MAP 21 and FAST Act legislation. Both of these legislative acts emphasize performance-based planning. So they're really about providing some accountability regarding the transportation investments that our MPO makes and that our local governments make. The requirements found in this legislation prescribe performance measures to be tracked by DOTs and MPOs. The targets, we set targets for all 3 of these measures back in 2018. The targets last for 4 years, and because this is our 2nd year having set the targets, we're just providing somewhat of like a report card or a midterm evaluation. We can't actually adjust the targets until 2022, but the information that I'm presenting to you today should inform our target setting activities in 2 years when we're able to adjust them. So this is actually maybe the 3rd or 4th presentation that we brought to you on this topic. Since 2016, we've been producing safety targets. That was the first FHWA rule that was rolled out, and we have to set safety targets for things like fatalities, serious injuries on our network. In 2018, we began setting targets for the 3 that we're reviewing today. Once again, these targets last for 4 years, so we're just here to kind of provide you with an update. Next slide, please. The first performance category is transit asset condition. Next slide, please. Transit asset condition is the performance metric that we're looking at. The title of the rule is Transit Asset Management Rule, or TAM. TAM can be thought of as a process that involves creating an inventory of transit assets, assessing the condition, and then using that information to establish a business strategy so that maintenance can be funded on time. By on time, we mean like lining up maintenance so that we can sustain the life of the asset, right? We want to prolong it so that we can get the most value out of it before it's retired. Another key concept to remember while we're going over the targets is SGR, which stands for state of good repair. If an asset is in state of good repair, that means that it's performing its intended function, it's performing it safely, and the investment made in that asset has been recovered. Next slide, please. All right, so this rule applies to all transit providers receiving federal funding. HART would be categorized as a tier 1 agency. What that really means is that it has a pretty large fleet, and so it's subject to slightly different requirements than a tier 2 agency. Some of the tier 2 agencies that we have in this region include T-BARTA and the Sunshine Line. Those 2 agencies, because they're smaller, they're still required to perform a TAM review, but they report directly to the state, whereas HART is responsible for producing its TAM all on its own. So regardless of whether it's a big or a small agency, they're all required to inventory their assets. All assets that cost more than $50,000 have to be inventoried and assessed. Those assets are then categorized into one of the 4 categories shown on this slide, either rolling stock, which is basically passenger vehicles, equipment, which includes service vehicles, construction and maintenance assets. Facilities has 2 subcategories, one being administrative and the other being like passenger facilities, and lastly, infrastructure. So once they're categorized, the condition is rated, and again, that information is used to establish a business practice. Once the assets are inventoried and the condition is assessed, the Tier 1 agencies have to coordinate with both us as an MPO and the local DOT to establish performance targets that they're aspiring to achieve. Next slide, please. All of the measures that I'm going to cover right now are reported in a pretty interesting way. So the numbers that we're presenting are percent of assets that do not meet a state of good repair. So what that means for your purposes is that a lower number here would be better. A lower number typically indicates that the fleet is in a better condition, and a higher number would be the opposite. So for rolling stock assets, when we set the target back in 2018, the performance was that 28% of the assets were not in a state of good repair. 2 years later, we're now at approximately 41% of passenger vehicles not in a state of good repair. And that figure probably seems a little bit high, but it's not atypical for industry standard. So what this means is that because HART doesn't have a consistent stream of revenue to replace the same amount of buses each year, that number can fluctuate considerably. During times of boom, HART might be able to place an order for 30 replacement vehicles in a year, and then during times of bust, they may be limited to replacing only a handful in a given year. So until HART is able to get that consistent revenue stream and really strategically time the replacements, this number is going to go up by anywhere between 10 to 15% on an annual basis. Next slide, please. The second performance metric that we're looking at is equipment assets not in a state of good repair. When we set this initial target back in 2018, 19% of the assets were not in a state of good repair, and 2 years later to now, about 33% are not in a state of good repair. This number, once again, may seem a little bit high, but this is well within the range of industry standard, considering the context that HART doesn't have that revenue stream. Because these equipment assets, like service vehicles, have a much shorter life cycle than the big 40-foot CNGs, this number can fluctuate anywhere between 20 and 25% on an annual basis. So until that revenue stream is predictable, this number is going to jump around a lot. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Can you go back one slide? I forgot to mention something. So when I get to the end of the presentation, I will be asking you to take action on this one minor detail. Back in 2018, when we reported the performance target for equipment assets, we accidentally took the inverse of what it's supposed to be. So we actually presented it as 81% of equipment not in a state of good repair. It should have been 19%. So this year, we're asking you to allow us to update that to reflect HART's actual performance target. Next slide, please. The third performance category are facility assets, and these are the ones that are broken down into 2 subcategories. So passenger parking facilities would include things like bus stops, bus stations, benches, covered awnings. In 2018, when performance was assessed, 10% of those facilities were not in a state of good repair. 2 years later, HART has made a lot of investments in this area, and they've brought that performance down to 0% not in a state of good repair. The second subcategory is administrative and maintenance facilities, which was 0 back in the initial evaluation period. In 2020, the agency has made a lot of strides in digitizing its asset inventory. And another thing that they have done is actually assess the condition of the H&M facility, which is heavy maintenance. That heavy maintenance facility is a very expensive, large asset, and it was not inventoried in time to include in the 2018 evaluation. So 2020 is like the real number. And so we knew that this heavy maintenance facility already had problems with flooding and roof leaking. I think it's really important to keep our eye on this particular facility metric, because HART is getting ready to unveil a number of electric vehicles, and I've been told by the asset managers in the facility that they really want to prioritize taking care of the roof leaks and the flooding, because electric vehicles and the technology to work on these vehicles do not mix with water. So this is going to be something that's really important to keep our eye on. Next slide, please. And the last asset category is infrastructure assets. Both in 2018 and now, 0% of the rail streetcar rail have performance restrictions. HART doesn't actually own this asset, so it's not included in its TAM plan, but we reached out to the city of Tampa, which owns it, and they confirmed that it's in perfect condition. Next slide, please. Of course, the MPO is doing what it can to help improve the condition of our transit assets. Each year, the MPO prioritizes about $4 million in grant funds for bus replacements, and we've done this over the past 5+ years. We've also prioritized about $10 million to invest in upgrading the CAD AVL system, which is a bus location and tracking system. We prioritized about $1 million in infrastructure improvements for the Marion Transit Center. And again, we're keeping our eye on that heavy maintenance facility because we know that that's something that needs to be done in the near future. Next slide, please. The second rule that we have to cover is pavement and bridge condition. Next slide. Under this rule, this performance target applies to state DOTs and MPOs. Both of our agencies are required to establish targets for pavement and bridge. Back in 2018, when we presented these targets to our board, they agreed to support the statewide target, which are shown on the screen in front of you. Our statewide targets are to maintain 60% or more of our interstate pavement in good condition and less than 5% of it in poor condition. Our non-interstate national highway system pavement should have more than 40% in good condition and less than 5% in poor condition. And our bridges should have more than 50% be in good condition and less than 10% be in poor. Next slide, please. So once again, our MPO decided to support the statewide targets back in 2018, even though we may not have been meeting the target back in 2018. So some of these are aspirational, and they were set so that we can keep our eye on ensuring that we're continuing to try to progress in each of these areas. Back in 2018, when we set the target for interstate pavement, only 51% of it was in good condition, and so we were, significantly behind the curve. Fast forward 2 years, and the DOT has made a lot of improvements on the interstate, and we're on the verge. I would say we're within striking distance of achieving that 60% target. It seems like we're on track to exceed that by 2022 when those 4-year targets are meeting their deadline. Our interstate pavement was exceeding the target back in 2018, and although it declined a little bit, we're still far exceeding the target goal of having less than 5% be in poor condition. Our non-interstate NHS pavement goal is to have more than 40% in good condition. We were meeting that back in 2018. We have fallen behind a little bit in 2020, but the DOT has a commitment to allocate funds in its work program to invest in pavement condition. And so we would expect that that number will approximately stay the same. It may increase over the next 2 years. Similar to the interstate pavement in poor condition, our non-interstate pavement is about the same. I would say that it nominally improved from 0.2% to 0.1. We're still nowhere near that 5% goal, or that goal of having more than 5% in or less than 5% in poor condition. As far as the bridges, there are about 730 bridges in Hillsborough County. 462 of them fall on the national highway system. We are far exceeding our target of having more than 50% in good condition. That number decreased slightly from 2018, but we're nowhere near falling out of meeting that target. And the bridges in poor condition remain 0. Next slide, please. All right, the last rule that we're going to cover today is system performance. System performance is measured in terms of travel time reliability. I know that not everyone was here when we introduced these targets 2 years ago, so I'm going to cover a little bit about what travel time reliability is and how it's measured. We know that this is not necessarily an intuitive metric for most. So travel time reliability is the dependability of your travel time on a day-to-day basis. This isn't really your traditional measure of congestion. People expect that if congestion is not a problem, that means that you can just get to your destination very quickly and not sit in traffic. We understand that in Hillsborough County, just about all of our major roads and interstates are not performing very well. We have a high level of congestion regardless of the time of day, regardless of the day of the week or month of the year. And so those traditional congestion metrics don't apply to us because they don't really tell us that much. A much better metric is the reliability of your commute. How many times a week does your commute take you 30 minutes, right? So my commute to work on an average day is about 30 minutes. On a poor day, it could be anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, or I'm sorry, on a good day, it could be anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. On a really bad day, it could be as long as 60 minutes. That would indicate very low travel time reliability. On the other hand, a high amount of reliability would be that if your commute to work takes you 30 minutes, some days it takes you 25, others it takes you 35, we would consider that to be pretty reliable. Next slide, please. And so once again, we understand that traffic on all of our roads and just about all of our roads in Hillsborough County is pretty poor. Most of this can be attributed to just a few reasons. So non-recurring congestion is primarily a function of bottlenecks, traffic incidents like crashes, vehicle breakdowns, inclement weather, road construction, natural hazards, things like that really contribute to low travel time reliability because those are making traffic worse than what you would normally expect. Next slide, please. All right, and to get into methodology, the way that travel time reliability is assessed is maintaining a level of travel time reliability less than 1.5, 75% of the time. So to put it in plain English, 75% of the time that you're making your commute, it should not add 50% more travel time. So my 30-minute commute should take me no longer than 45 minutes, 75% of the time. If we're meeting that, that means that we have pretty good reliability. That metric applies to both the interstate and non-interstate NHS. The truck travel time reliability is measured a little bit different. It's assessed on an index value. So a TTTR value of 2 would mean that during periods of the worst congestion, a truck doesn't have to double its travel time. So a 30-minute travel time wouldn't exceed 60 minutes. 60 minutes wouldn't exceed 120 and so on. Next slide, please. Our MPO board agreed to support the statewide targets for level of travel time reliability back in 2018. The 2018 performance was 71%, and the goal is to, again, have that be 75% of the time. So we were not meeting it. We set that target even though it was aspirational. 2 years later, The DOT has made a number of improvements regarding operations and management, and as of 2020, we're just meeting that goal. The performance on the non-interstate NHS the target was set to be 50% LOTTR. We were exceeding that in 2018, and we're far exceeding that in 2020. So we bumped that up more than 20%. And the truck travel time reliability is to have the TTR index value less than 2. Back in 2018, we were not meeting that target. We were at 2.08. In 2020, we are exceeding that target now. Next slide, please. And even though a lot of improvements have been made to address reliability on the national highway system, we could still do more. I'm actually about to kick off a study called the Smart Cities Mobility Plan, which will look at ways that we can adopt innovative operation strategies and technology to address some of the major causes of low reliability in our county. And so we look to be bringing you an update on that in the near future. Next slide, please. Once again, this is an action item. We can't adjust the targets until 2022, but we're asking you to allow us to approve a correction to the TAM targets by changing that incorrect 81% of equipment assets not in a state of good repair to 19%. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Johnny. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the presentation?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Arizona.
You said that they're gonna replace some buses. Does that mean they're hot plus buses as well?
Sorry, I didn't hear the first part of that. You cut out a little bit.
That you said that they're gonna replace some buses. Are they gonna also replace some vans, hot plus vans as well?
I think that maybe Justin from Hart can speak to that a little bit more than I can, but I was told by the asset manager that they placed an order for like 30 some 40-foot buses a couple of years ago, and they're scheduled to be delivered in the near future. As far as the other service vehicles like vans and SUVs, I'm not really sure how many they have ordered or when the scheduled date for arrival is.
Well, they need to include that too, because those vans are getting old as well. AC's going out, the lift's not working, so they need to do that as well.
Yeah, as part of preparing for this presentation, I spoke with Hart's new asset manager, and his team shared their concerns with me. In addition to the heavy maintenance facility just being an asset in poor condition on its own, the condition of the maintenance facility is also leading to some degradation of the buses. The humidity building up in the facility is starting to warp some of the plywood on the bus floors. They're concerned that this could be an issue in the future. But again, until Hart has a consistent revenue stream, I think we can only hope that they can do the best with what they have for now.
Yeah, also when they're gonna be replacing the bus shelters, they need to put some new shelters over here on 21st Street. They are always going to the west side, Kennedy and all that, but let's not forget about the one in Hillsborough. We need some new shelters over here as well.
We can chat with Justin offline, and we can talk about all of the assets that Hart needs. I'm sure we could, collectively come up with a very long list.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure that it's on record that I repeated that, okay?
All right, thanks.
Dr. Wong, this is Larry.
Yeah, go ahead, Larry. Go ahead.
In the travel time study that you did, has COVID been taken into consideration with the reduction of traffic?
Not for this year's data. This data only goes up until 2020, so it goes through the end of calendar year 2019. When we produce these data points again in 2022, I would expect that we're going to see some really interesting outliers. We've been tracking it throughout the period of like today since March, and initially travel time reliability was very good because the majority of white collar workers were working at home. Now that we're starting to ask people to come back to the job, and certain parts of the county may have eased restrictions, I think things are starting to look a little bit normal, but that doesn't help us project what the trends will be in the future. We're kind of like holding our breath to see how telecommuting will impact congestion on the network long term.
And Johnny, I had one question. Maybe this is not necessarily part of the presentation, but looking at the roads that are considered to be part of the national highway system, it seems like Southeast Hillsborough and also maybe Northwest Hillsborough, probably obviously the later developed areas of the county, there's not many of those roads. So is there ever a consideration to add roads to this system, like a Gun Highway or like a Big Bend Road in the future? And is that something that has occurred previously? And does that ever factor into rating whether or not the road is up to standard?
I would have to defer answering that question to someone who's been around longer than me. I really have no idea when the last time a road was added to the NHS is. Mostly I'm not familiar with the process, so I'd like to give you an answer, but just got no clue.
Okay, anybody else have a question or comment? Otherwise, we do have a motion to consider. The recommend correcting transit asset management equipment target from less than 81% to less than 19% of assets not in a state of good repair.
Kathy Coyle, so moved.
Thank you, Kathy. Do we have a second?
The
Okay, Arizona with a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you. I guess we'll take that as a unanimous vote. Thanks.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Johnny. So our next item, I think, we're on the Fowler Avenue multimodal study. Do we have Ken Spitz?
I am on today. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
Great. Hi, my name is Ken Spitz. I'm the Transportation Planning Manager for DOT District 7 in Tampa. I will ask, is there a way to expand the screen that you're showing there to show the whole slide? Because there will be some things in the future that are pretty small on that.
Okay.
If that's possible.
I'm going to try.
Okay.
Having very good luck today, so.
Okay. I'll keep talking. You have control of the slides, right?
I do.
Okay, we can go ahead and go to the next one.
Okay.
We do call this the University Avenue multimodal, University Area multimodal study. It goes from I-75 on the west to, on the east to I-275 on the west, Fowler Avenue. The reason it was originally called the University Area is because it was a shorter distance than that. We had it from I-275 to about 50th, 56th Street. And we did extend that later after some talking with Temple Terrace. So originally it was the University Area Multimodal Feasibility Study. We worked on this with Kimley Horn. They were our prime consultant on the contract. First part of it was that we did some base planning work, which I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on here with you because I know you want to see what the concepts are that we're coming up with. But what I'll hit on is that we did identify 3 key corridor needs. And as you can see on the screen, the headings are safety, transit flexibility, and thank you, and intersection efficiency. Safety, number one, obviously, we know that we have both crash with vehicle, with pedestrians and cyclists history there that we need to change. It's been negative and we need to get those numbers reduced. Also, as part of that, we know that we not only need to provide safer facilities for vulnerable users, we need to upgrade the lighting. We need to reduce cyclist exposure. As you know, it's 45 miles an hour for most of that corridor. So we need to, those folks are right there next to what I would call higher speed traffic. And we also need to lower the vehicle travel speeds in segments where there are more pedestrian and cyclists. Also, longer term, this part of the community is planned for some transit upgrades. And so we need transit flexibility to accommodate whatever might be planned. At the time we started this, HART was still in the process of determining what their BRT system might look like in first phase. And then later we also looked at their longer term, what might be able to be done there. Being a state highway, we also need to be concerned about intersection efficiency. You may be aware that we've got probably about 3 million more square feet of mixed use development that's planned and I believe approved in that area. Which includes about 3,000 new residences. Now, when exactly those will go online, of course, is still up in the air, but that is what's planned, and we do have to account for some of that. So one of the things that we're looking at are what's called innovative intersection designs. Those are at grade changes in the way that vehicles can move through an intersection. I won't be explaining that a lot in this because I could give you an hour presentation just on innovative intersections. But we will be looking at this more during the PD&E phase, project development and environment stage, which I'm going to talk about next. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. So what are the timeframes for the actions I'm going to describe? So we've divided those into short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And as you can see, that fits within 5-year buckets, within 5 years, within 10, and then 10 or more. The reason we do that is because FDOT's work program is split up into 5-year programs. That's so that we can schedule money and also our effort and contracting. So the difference between these is we can do some minor construction actions that do not require right-of-way immediately within 5 years. We can complete the planning and environmental approval process for the next stage during that. And then we can also begin to work on the right-of-way that we might need for the medium-term actions. And as you can see, that process continues through each of those phases. Okay. So this is a map. Oh, there it goes. I was going to say, I've got some dots that should be showing up. There we go. So these are the, back one. There we go. So short-term actions. So these are within fiscal year 2022 to 2024. Our fiscal year starts in July at FDOT. So actually right now, we are in fiscal year 21. So that gives you an idea how this falls. What we've got here are some of the immediate intersection improvements that we're looking to do. Leading pedestrian interval is a change in the signaling, which gives pedestrians sort of a head start on the green light to cross the street. The other traffic still remains on a red. That way, the idea there is that the pedestrians are out further into the crosswalk so they can be seen more easily by vehicles and other users. Then we've got complete intersection crosswalks. So this is a little bit more of a catch-all. What we're doing here is talking about, we can be doing actually painted crosswalks. We can also be doing islands for refuge for pedestrians. So there's variations here that we can do. But these are, again, these are mostly towards the pedestrians and the bicyclists, these improvements. You can see we have them spread out along the corridor, Nebraska, 12th, 19th, 22nd, and also on all the way to River Hills Drive. Okay. So when would these take place? This is the current schedule. I will throw out the caveat that budgets do change. We are involved right now in everybody's, I guess, looking at, all government agencies are looking at what the revenue impacts are of COVID-19. So I will throw that out there, but this is what is proposed as of this moment. You've got the different projects aligned here on Fowler that we've got in our work program. And then you can see over here at the lower right, we've got the fiscal year that those would happen in. PD&E, as I mentioned, is project development and environmental phase. That's a study that we do in-house, well, with consultants, but it's run through FDOT. That's sort of your initial planning design work combined. And then it would go, the green are design. So you'll see a couple of these, like for example, the first few, Nebraska at Fowler, 12th at Fowler, those are already in design. Those are small pedestrian and bicyclist type projects that we can accelerate. Those don't require a PD&E report. They don't require any right of way to be purchased, that kind of thing, to change access. Those things are already scheduled to happen. So those will be in design this fiscal year. And then the blue are when they would actually be constructed. So as you can see, we've got the different pedestrian projects. We've also got multimodal improvements down at the bottom, which are implement transit bike pedestrian improvements. The budgets on those obviously have not been decided yet. Those are a few years out further. But these were all things that would happen within the next 5 years. Okay. Okay, so now we'll get into the fun part. We'll talk about the designs that we've come up with for concepts. So I will say that these concepts will be analyzed in the PD&E study. The PD&E study will not be limited to just these three. That's part of the beauty of a PD&E. We can also bring up new ideas during that phase. That phase is when we do also much more of the community involvement and public outreach activities. So folks will have a definite opportunity to have their voices heard and alter and impact the design. So let's talk about what the three concepts are that we did through the planning study. We have what's called the BAT lane, business access and transit lane. This is a lane that is shared between transit vehicles and non-transit vehicles, but the non-transit vehicles would be restricted to making right turns. So think of it as kind of a special right turn lane. Buses can use it to go through at intersections, but the vehicles can only turn into driveways, shopping centers, that kind of thing from that lane. That's a minor to major construction depending on where it's at. We've got some sections on Fowler where, as you're aware, especially towards the west end, where there are a lot of driveways close together. So that might be more on the major construction side because we'd be looking at possibilities and opportunities there to maybe combine some of those driveways, reduce the number of driveways that would come in. That'll be looked at as part of PD&E. We also have a frontage lane design. Some people call this a boulevard. Our terminology they came up with was frontage lane. And what this does is it takes an access lane is separated from the main roadway with curbside bus only lane. And that'll be a little easier to see when we show the visuals. Those are also minor to major constructions, and that would be more of a medium term action. And then we have the median transit way. So these would be the bus rapid transit or potentially in the future a light rail transit line that with stations in the center. It can also be on the side, but the way that the plan came out was in the center. This is obviously a major construction action because it would require a total reconstruction of the road. So let's go ahead in the next slide and we'll get into these. So this would be an example, and again, these are conceptual. So this is not any particular piece of the roadway. This is the way we come up with this to test things. This is a BAT lane. And you can see that we have from the symbols on the top there, you've got pedestrian and bicycle facilities, you've got transit, whether it's a bus only lane as it might be shown here, but that could also be a BAT lane so that right turns could be made. And then you've got lanes for the vehicles. The idea here is you can see we've shown that there is space to provide transit stops, shelters, what have you, in that area. We can also more pull the bicycles. They can be along the road where there's not stations, and then they can come behind the stations. And so you could actually have bike racks and that kind of thing. So it makes it a little more multimodal. We can have facilities for cyclists there. You also, as you can see, you have sidewalks on both sides. In this right of way, those could be wider than they currently are. They could also, perhaps people, if they wanted to use their bicycles on those paths, that would be allowed also. some people don't like to ride on the road. And so that would be an idea that we might be able to get into in parts of the corridor. So that's what a bat lane looks like. Go on to the next concept. This was the frontage lane concept. You can see the pictures on the upper right there kind of show it a little better too. You've got Montgomery County, Maryland, and in Queens, New York, where this has been done. Again, some folks call this a boulevard. And the idea here is the traffic that's in the cars that are in the center are, I'm not going to say it's high speed. It would still be whatever the regular speed limit is. But the idea there is folks that aren't interacting with the local streets or the driveways would be separated. And then you've got a frontage road or another lane off to the side, which is for slower traffic. Again, that would be, you could go into then driveways going into businesses or homes, that kind of thing. Similar design in that you've got the transit lane. Again, that could be shared or that could be bus only. You do have these little kind of slip roads. That's not exactly they would be designed. Again, this is for conceptual purposes to show you what this might look like. And then you've got the transit stops, shelters, that kind of thing off to the side. Again, all the modes are represented here. You do have pedestrian paths, separate bicycle facilities, separate facilities for transit and for vehicles. Okay. This is a median transit way. We called it transit way because, again, this could be buses as shown here, or it could be light rail line in the future. This is more of a, obviously things here are much more separated out. And part of that's going to be because what the median transit way does is the transit vehicles, again, whether they're buses or trains, would be separated from the other traffic. That allows them to travel at faster than the vehicle traffic speeds if needed. And it's also safer, especially when you get to light rail transit. Again, all the different facilities are here. We've got the pedestrians, we've got paths for them, we've got bicycle lanes, you've got vehicle lanes, and then you've got areas separated out for transit. I will say the one thing that's a little complicated with this is when you get to intersections, because then you've got roadways that are on the outside, you've got transit that's in the center, but they do have systems called TSP, which allow transit priority when it comes to the stoplights. So a lot of times what can happen is the vehicle lights can all go red. They all stop while the transit vehicle passes through or makes its turn left or right from the center. Then when it's done, then the traffic pattern goes back to normal. So those are things that can actually be done with current technology. Okay, go to the next slide, please. As I mentioned, while we were doing the planning, I know technology is great. While we were doing the planning phase of the project, Hart was simultaneously working on their bus rapid transit concept. And so they came up with Arterial Brt concept. And as you can see here, it's very similar to the median guideway. Theirs is a little different at ours. You can see they show 4 lanes in each direction. I believe we showed 3. But they also were able to put some widths to theirs. As I said, ours was conceptual design at this point. So as you can see, they've got the 12-foot shared use paths on both sides. You've got some planting strips that could have vegetation trees in it. You've got 11-foot lanes. You've got the bus area in the center, which is about 35 to 40 feet provided for the transit with some median barriers there between, and then the same on the other side. What we wanted to do here is show, I don't believe that they finally decided what they want to move forward with, but what we wanted to show with this was that Fowler Avenue could actually accommodate that, and we think we can accommodate them within whatever design they end up picking within our right-of-way. The map shows the area that this guideway would be in, so this would be from Nebraska to Bruceby down, so this would not be the entire length of Fowler Avenue as currently planned. Okay. And then those are the concepts. So I'll be happy to take any questions from you. I will say again that the project development environmental phase is coming up this fiscal year. So we will definitely be getting into more of this, and there'll be more that we can share with you, more details. This is a planning study.
Thank you, Ken. Sarah Hendricks had a question. Sarah, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hi. Ken, I like your
Hi.
concepts. Just a question about the short-term improvements at Bull Runner Drive. There's a proposal to put a crosswalk there. Would there also be consideration for a pedestrian signal? I'm not 100% sure, but at that location, crossing over Fowler, there's no crosswalk presently, which also means there's no pedestrian signal. Is that something that might be a consideration?
I believe we are looking at a signal there. Yes, it's pedestrian phase. Yes.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And then just one comment I just wanted to make. Ken, you're probably aware of this, but University of South Florida, Tampa campus, it has just kicked off their campus master planning process. And part of that is, of course, the transportation improvements that they would be proposing for the next 10 years. So the time horizon is to 2030. And so hopefully there'll be some conversations between their process and proposals for Fowler Avenue improvements.
Yeah, we did actually have some conversations with reps from USF, but they had also told us that they were getting ready to do that. So as you point out, they were kind of initial or preliminary at that stage, but that is something that we do plan on working with them. I know, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the person that we were dealing with there, but they have been involved in some of the conversations that we've had. So that is an integral part of where we were going forward.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ken.
I have a
Any
question.
other-
This is Sandy
Go ahead.
Petrelli. Ken, just a real quick question. I live in Temple Terrace. I represent Temple Terrace, and I drive down Fowler Avenue all the time. My concern is putting the bus in the middle of Fowler Avenue. Isn't that going to have like people crossing erratically? I mean, it's bad enough now. Isn't that going to make it worse?
I'm not going to say that's going to make it worse. That is obviously something that has to be taken into in the design. And what happens, Aaron, if you can go to the slide again that shows the median BRT. The idea there is that what you're going to do is you're going to provide. I mean, obviously it's not shown here because this is a typical section. But say, for example, in the lower center there, where that bus shelter is, there would be crosswalks. There would be pedestrian light there that would allow them to go across. But your point is well taken. They still have to cross the first lanes to get to the refuge, and that is a issue in all kinds of concepts like this, where you put transit down the center. I will say,
is there any way to like put like barriers up so they can't cross the street? Basically, deter them to where they actually can cross, some sort of a wall of some sort. I mean, it's just it's bad enough now. I can't even imagine when you get buses going down the middle and people being dropped off at bus stations.
Well, I can also say that primarily when this is used, where they're done is at near intersections. So what would happen is you'd have the regular crosswalks and the pedestrian signals at those locations. Again, I've not seen it. Hart's still working this. I've not seen exactly where they plan to have their stations or shelters at along this line. But in other, as you can see here, for example, like in the Quito example, that's primarily near an intersection. And so there would be some pedestrian crosswalk. It wouldn't be just you're left out in the middle and, make it on your own. We're not playing Frogger here on Fowler Avenue. So that's the general concept. We didn't show that in this because we're just showing a typical section.
Sure. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, this is Justin Willits with Hart, if I may.
Oh, hey, Justin. You can answer this better than I can.
Yeah, no, she's right. One of many reasons we kind of don't have a ton of service on Fowler East-West right now is because of the crossings that we would then kind of encourage by the access of the service itself. But if you think about service right now, when it runs in the outside lane, at one point in your round trip as a transit rider, you're going to have to cross all 8 to 10 lanes of Fowler, or 8 lanes of Fowler. So that's a pretty daunting task as it is. So one of the benefits of the median guideway is that on your round trip, you only have to cross half of the street to get to the service in the middle. And like Ken said, the benefits is that we would try to get our stations as close to a signalized crosswalk. And right now, just to kind of answer Ken's question, we're primarily looking at 15th, 22nd, and then 30th for the stations on Fowler, those are kind of going to be worked out pretty soon. But we're trying to tie those stations right into the existing crosswalks. And then, of course, based on some of the improvements that DOT is looking at with this project in the short term, that could affect our station placement if there are additional safe crosswalks. But we're also trying to facilitate easy transfers with our existing services on 15th and 22nd between Bruce B. Downs and Nebraska. So I like a lot of the concepts. We're currently moving forward actually into the PD&E phase for our BRT project. As of Monday, our board made a motion and is moving forward with task 5 of the BRT study, which is the PD&E phase. And we're really excited about that. And it looks like we're pretty much lined up well with this project to make sure that we're all on the same page. And I'm sure I'll be meeting with Ken and his team quite a bit during this PD&E phase to make sure that we're all singing the same tune and working on everything on the same page. So happy to take any more questions for the project too. If I didn't hit anything, I may have missed something. I had to cut out, which was actually, if you could go back to the first option, I actually missed that. I got pulled away for a moment. Yeah.
Bat lane.
Yeah, so this is still a good concept. We like it, but it still has that problem where in one direction you're going to have a pedestrian crossing 6 whole lanes of traffic. So it's not, kind of what I would consider the gold standard for like the median BRT, but it is an option. And obviously, depending on our funding situation and what happens with the surtax, this could be probably the most affordable option that would still provide a lot of benefits. But, at this point, I wouldn't say it's our preferred, but it's still definitely a viable one that we will entertain depending on how all the funding shakes out, which will be fun to watch how that shapes up.
Arizona, you had a comment, and then we'll do David and Cal after that.
Yeah. How are you going to get somebody in a wheelchair to get all of us in the middle about? It takes 2 to 3 minutes to load a wheelchair. Where are you going to put the ramp base for the ramp to go up and down? Because you get a wheelchair on the bus, you got to put the lift down, you got to go on the ramp, you got to get in the box, you got to lock the wheelchair down. How are you going to do all that in the middle of
I don't know, Justin, if you want to talk about the ADA requirements at the shelters.
Yeah, so the same requirements are for any kind of median station as there is for the outside running station. As you can see there, you have to imagine that just off screen below that station is going to be a crosswalk straight across. So it's no different than any other corridor. The reason that Fowler is such an attractive place for a median guideway, as we all know, is that it's a pretty wide stretch. I think Ken probably knows off the top of his head. It's 150, 130 feet, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, different sections are 180. Some places are up to 220.
Yeah. So, and when we talk about kind of, some of us talk about a culture change, this kind of would change the feel of Fowler to help kind of, when you separate those directional general traffic lanes by so much space, you'd probably help encourage those slower speeds without impacting capacity too much. And then providing that transit in the middle creates a little better of an environment when you're only crossing one leg of traffic. But ADA is not a concern for us. I'm sorry, go ahead, Arizona.
I'm not talking about the color. I'm talking about loading and unloading a wheelchair in the middle of our. Do you know how long it takes to load a wheelchair? It takes 2 to 3 minutes to load and unload or put in at this minute. You have to, that the lift is level to the ground. can't be too much of a end climb. And you, if the lift is on the incline, the bus is gonna fall down the ramp, going down the ramp fast, and they're gonna run right to the middle bottle and gonna get killed. So you need to make sure you know what you're doing when you're putting the lift in the middle bottle.
So I think I have the answer that you're looking for. I'm sorry, I think I misunderstood your question at first. But one of the things about BRT is that we hopefully will not be using the lift or deploying a ramp because we will have level boarding. So you will be able to roll right on to the bus because when the bus pulls up to the station, it's not going to have to kneel or deploy a ramp. There should be a, you know, whatever the requirement is for the gap should just be an inch or two. And then you'll roll right onto the vehicle without any ramp needing to be deployed. That's one of the best things. One of the best things about the stations with BRT is that you have that level boarding, much like you would on a light rail or commuter train.
Okay.
So you roll right on, and then we don't have to. So that reduces the amount of time that we have to spend at each station. So then all you really need to do is secure the wheelchair on the vehicle instead of deploying the ramp, rolling it on, and then bringing the ramp back in. So I think that's going to address your concerns.
I got you on that. Okay. But now, how are you going to secure the wheelchair? How are you going to secure the wheelchair?
He's asking how you'll secure the wheelchair. Would it be the same way you do now, Justin?
Yeah, at a minimum, it would be the same way we do now, unless I know there's some, I would say, fancier technology out there than our kind of typical belt strap in. There is some mechanical systems out there that are probably pretty expensive. At this point, I'm not sure what technology would use, but at a minimum, it would be the same way that we do now.
Okay, let me recommend that before we go forward, I need to go out there and look at that because I am on the board of the Hotline 88, so I need to make sure that you guys are doing well. So when you are doing that, can you let me know when you're out there so I can go look at it?
Yeah, when we get further into the process and go into the FTA application and we talk about the types of vehicles and the different technology on there, if we get to that point, that's a big unknown for now, but we will definitely use you as our ADA expert to talk about how we're going to address those issues and securing wheelchair passengers on the vehicle for sure.
Okay, thank you.
David and then Cal.
Sure. I just wanted to make a comment about the median transit way. I used to live up in Boston, and there's a state highway, Route 9, which is Huntington Avenue. They run streetcars down the middle of that road. It's a very busy road in Boston. It works totally fine. The key seems to be, you know, having it, of course, close to intersections, but also they have like low barriers, so then people aren't darting out into the roadway, that, you know, they know they can't just run across the road and get to the bus, that they have to actually get to a crosswalk. So I think it actually improves the situation by funneling the people down to wherever those crosswalks are. I know in Boston, they've been doing it that way for years. Even back in the 80s, it was done that way. So I think that one out of the three would be the best in my opinion.
Thanks, David. Cal, you had a comment?
Yeah, just the parkway idea with the frontage roads. That's interesting. I never thought about that for Fowler. If people are looking for examples, they have a few pictures up there. There's a lot of these in Brooklyn area. Eastern Parkway is one. I thought it was called Brooklyn Parkway, but And then one other thing, just to point out on the grass, when we're talking about median transitway and other things, the other sides have, like putting the transit on the side has limitations too, because what we're not seeing on these on this is driveway cuts and things like that. So just kind of know that there's trade-offs either way. But yeah, I think they all, to be honest, they all are pretty interesting, and I'm kind of excited to see what happens with this, because it's a very, there was a lot of thought put into this. So good job for the team over there. And that's it.
Thanks, Cal. And then Sarah Hendricks asked if there is a proposed maximum speed limit, or is there any, is there any proposed changes to what the speed limit currently is?
Yeah, thank you. I did forget to mention that. One of the things that we're looking at in this whole corridor, really, especially the western part, say from 56th west, we would like to get to a target speed here of 35 miles an hour as the posted speed. And some of those concepts that you've shown, and in fact, even the one here that's up, that's with the Arterial Brt showing an 11-foot lane. We're looking at whether, although we have room to do full lanes, and especially in that western section, we're looking at using either 11 or perhaps 10.5-foot lanes for the travel lanes. We realize that in order to get actual compliance with reduced speed, posted speeds, that you also have to change the geometry of the road to do that. So we specifically didn't in our concept show widths of the lanes and widths of the medians, because we wanted to show it as a concept, and because they'll actually be designing it based on what comes up in the PD&E phase of the study. So, but that is a key aspect. We would like to see 35 miles an hour for most of that corridor as the posted speed.
Great. And then I guess my last thing, what is, what type of outreach or what's kind of the next step of this? There's a lot going on up there. There's the innovation, the innovation group working at University Mall, and obviously a lot of development at the VA and USF, but it's also an economically distressed area. So what's the next phase in terms of outreach? Because you have very different, you have just a lot of different populations and entities that are off of Fowler Avenue and have a stake in the game on this.
Absolutely. During this phase, we did have outreach actually with, as I mentioned earlier, with the campus, and then also with the Innovation District with Mark Sharp's group. I will say that you guys were second on our list here. We got to you next. We did have a presentation a couple of weeks ago with the Innovation District. They sponsored it's like a real estate breakfast kind of thing. It's most of the developers and movers and shakers and business folks up in that area. So there were representatives from the hospitals up there, from the campus, from several of the businesses. I believe Busch Gardens and some of those other folks. Yangling had people at that. So we did, they were the first ones to see this presentation that you've seen here, this summary. As we go into let me also say, we'll be doing more of the committees, obviously, with the MPO. I don't know that we've got one scheduled before the board yet, but so the first stage is we'll show the summary like we've done here, talk about the process. Then as we enter the PD&E stage, you'll have the whole host of typical public outreach. We'll identify neighborhood groups, we'll go work through the local governments, county, city of Temple Terrace. The university will have different public, I don't know, they would be hearings at that point, but public outreach efforts to get input. So the whole normal range that you have with a PD&E.
Ken, this is Lisa. What's the timing on the PD&E, so we know when that public process will start?
The only thing I think right now that's, and I'm going to be a little iffy on this, I think right now we're working on the procurement part of that. So it's just a matter of, we have to advertise it, we have to go through all that. And I want to say, though, it's still scheduled for this fiscal year. So we've got till next July, I guess, to get it started. So it should be coming up pretty soon.
To get the feedback on the different concepts, we would watch for the open houses and hearings for the PD&E then.
Yes, yes. And then on some of these safety improvements, those should happen within the next calendar year. Also, I should say within the next 12 months. We'll be getting those because, as I mentioned, those are already in design. So some of the pedestrian improvements you'll start seeing here within the next 12 months.
Great. This was very informative. Thank you so much.
And I want to follow up on one thing. I don't know, I think the UACDC, University Area CDC, I think includes part of Fowler for their service area. So if you haven't spoken to them, I think that's gotta be the best path to go forward in terms of getting the neighborhoods involved, just because they have a lot of interest in the walkability functions and connecting some of those entities, especially behind University Mall, some of those neighborhoods. And I think they've done similar presentations about accessibility and walkability. So
Okay,
that
great.
would be the last thing on that. Thank you. And then Lisa, are we on the presentation for West Shore Boulevard, or are we skipping that?
I did not receive that, and I do not see the staff member that was to present that. So I guess we're going to count Hillsborough County as a no-show today and move on. They had previously communicated after I'd sent the agenda that this school safety initiative was, they were not able to do that with all the work they're doing to open the schools and get everyone safely to and from school. So they deferred that to this fall. So you'll be hearing more on that, but it's coming in the fall, and I'll circle back with Bob Campbell and reschedule West Shore Boulevard. Unfortunately, I know from seeing this presentation at Michael Marino's Transportation Committee that they're anticipating their public open house to get the community's feedback on the cross sections that they've designed for their complete street. So as soon as I get confirmation of when that date is, and it will be virtual, I'll blast it out to the Livable Roadways Committee. They were anticipating 95% sure that it would be September 30th in the evening. But again, I don't have those details. So I will, at the minimum, get that to you as soon as I'm able. All right. Guess that means I'm up next. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Praying this works again. Yay. Okay. So Wade Reynolds and I are the project managers for 8 of the Vision Zero corridors. So I'll remind you that this group has seen a few times the top 20, and then we extended it to the top 50 Vision Zero corridors, and there are high injury networks. So we had an incredible blessing, opportunity when the Board of County Commissioners was rectifying their budget last year. They had some leftover funding, and they said, hey, let's go to work on those top corridors, and what we could fund at the time with that money is the top 8 most dangerous corridors. Now, given their, funding is always tight, we're going to start out with low-cost engineering solutions, and then trying to help the public get educated and law enforcement and other design solutions. So Wade Reynolds couldn't make it today, so I'm going to highlight his 4 corridors. He has Mango Road, and here are a couple of images from the field review. Today, I'm just kind of letting you know about it because we're doing a big outreach effort right now. Stay tuned because the juicy fun part, when we have recommendations and some solutions, is coming back in a couple of months. So you're just getting a sneak peek at it today. Oops, went too fast. Okay, here's some more about Mango. And so each corridor, we've done the crash analysis and looked at the types of crashes, when they're occurring, what's going on with the different roadway designs. He also has 15th Street. So I did text him during Ken's presentation because Justin mentioned that 15th Street was going to be one of the BRT potential locations for stations. So again, knowing all this stuff as we look at and analyze the corridors is good. So again, we have total crashes, how many fatalities, and the different modes of the crashes. We've developed these into flyers to distribute along the corridor, besides our big virtual push on each corridor, which I'll hit some more detail. And we've got mapping of the locations of the crash and type he's got Gibsonton Drive down in the South County area. So, and then our other planning studies have been considered and folded in. So the Gibsonton community plan and the vision for that effort and the different work that the Hillsborough County is doing in the area is there. Again, our little visual infographic highlighting the types and total crashes and the different modes to help people digest and understand what's going on. And his last and fourth corridor is 78th Street. So again, images from being out in the field. This one has a school along it. One of mine has a school along it as well. And then the infographic that's being distributed. And then anybody that's on our list for e-blast, which you are because you're a Livable Roadways member, hopefully, get our general blast as well. A constant contact email blast went out on Friday, inviting you to our Vision Zero Summit and to do this Plant City survey and these 8 corridors. So you can just click, click, click and go, because I know many of you frequent these 8 corridors. So we would love to have you weigh in and give us your feedback. Again, in this time of COVID, we're trying to be as creative as possible. So moving into the 4 I'm managing, we have Bruce B. Downs, again, up in the Innovation Place area. So we have, like Ken, we attended that virtual meeting that they had on different real estate venues and let them know about our thing. We have got, again, the types of crashes, the length of the corridor, the type of layout for the corridor. Here's the infographic that explains it, and then hopefully enticing to get the community to go weigh in and tell us their feedback. Because again, we've got data, but we don't live and work along the corridor. Plus, when we go out to review in the field, we're only going at one time of day, and we're going during COVID. So we're definitely trying to seek the community's input. We've been partnering along the whole way as we designed the field reviews and our outreach with Hillsborough County Public Works Department. So they helped us get it kicked off and review all the different things. I have Fletcher Avenue from Armenia to Nebraska. Again, we've got the total crashes, the mode split, and congestion, etc. And here's the flyer enumerating that for the public. I'm going to give you a little glimpse, because if you do go to our lovely website, God, it's going to open on this screen that's not working today, isn't it? Okay, no, maybe it's not. Okay, give it a second. Come on, baby, come on. See. Sorry, in my rush to get my monitors all to turn back on this morning, I didn't have the website up, so it's loading twice, sorry. All right, so what the flyers and our outreach efforts do and the email blasts is take you to this website, and on it are all 8 corridors. So any corridor that you've traveled on, know anything about, please click on and complete the survey. Here's the little survey link. Here's a link to the fact sheet that I showed you in the PowerPoint presentations that gives you the top, so you can become more familiar with the incidents and what's going on with each corridor. And then we have a few that have videos that with some drone footage and explains it. Because we're doing okay on time, you get to enjoy a couple of those. So I'm going to just show you part of it, and then I hope you go back and see the rest. When you click the link, it'll take you to the MPO's YouTube channel. We're on webinar, so it goes much smoother when you're not on GoToWebinar. Okay, it's not like it then. Okay. We won't endure that whole thing, especially since it doesn't like this. This one's embedded, so maybe it'll work a little better. This one is for Sheldon Road. Okay, and from there it goes on to highlight the different what's going on the corridor. So let's see back to here. So Lynn Turner, I told you about, and then Sheldon Road. So unfortunately, with Lynn Turner also has a school along it, so we're looking at that. Okay, and here's its flyer, Sheldon Road. Fortunately, we had three fatality crash last Tuesday, and I live near Sheldon and Linebaugh, and this is just outside. Sheldon and Linebaugh is just north of the extents of our study, but due to the crash, and it was along the corridor, and because of COVID, I got creative and I put the fact sheet in our community newsletter, which here's the face of. So that goes in every single one of my neighbors' driveways once a month. And so we scrambled and met the publication deadline to get this flyer into it. And so some of the neighbors work at the news stations in our community, and they shared the flyer. So we got called, and I had to do a couple of interviews with that. So that helped. And then what we're doing too is like contacting churches and the community groups to get the link posted on Facebook pages. So when I remind you and send you the flyer again after this meeting, if you could do the same thing and help get it distributed amongst the community for the 8 corridors, we'd really appreciate it, because with COVID, we can't go meet with them in person. Anyway, so here's a little image of the flyer that went out in the Constant Contact blast, and we've been highlighting it in our things. But again, if we go to planhillsborough.org and Google Vision Zero corridors, or just type in Vision Zero VZ corridors, it takes you to all 8 of the surveys. And we're running our survey until September 30th, so the end of the month. We're going to take that feedback, and like I said, we're bringing the low-cost engineering solutions back to you guys for review in probably 2 months. That concludes my highlight of the 8 Vision Zero corridors.
Thank you, Lisa. Obviously, I want to make a comment on the Sheldon Road part, because I saw your interview and I think you did a great job. The other thing too is, you think of like the things that are kind of like striking and kind of sometimes hard to deal with in terms of how old and how long some of these roads have been in bad shape. I mean, Lynn Turner Road, I think has been a bad road as long as, for like 30 years. I remember my family looked at houses off that road in the 90s and they thought it was too dangerous a road back then. And then obviously Sheldon is getting worse and worse over the years. So, and that's that part of the county where I grew up. So it's happening obviously all over the place, but thank you for that. And yeah, if you haven't signed up for the summit, 22nd, please do so. Obviously there's just a lot of momentum in the community to get some of these projects done and to increase awareness. And the past 6 months, obviously everyone is either working from home or in quarantine or what have you. But one of the things that you've also have heard about and seen, you have more people riding bicycles, you have more people walking. That's that's the way to get fresh air. That's the way to get out of the house. And so there's way more pedestrians out there now, in addition to those who maybe have lost transportation or lost their jobs, and now their only form of transportation is a bike or walking. So just it's up to a group like ours to promote the need to be aware and to promote safety. And I was very happy to hear that Fowler Avenue, you're looking to drop the speed limit on that. I will also add for West Shore Boulevard, this is a resurfacing plan, repaving plan, and then in the future, there's a PD&E study, or there's a PD&E study right now for a complete streets plan. The one of the proposals of the complete streets plan is to drop the speed limit to 35. So the resurfacing plan, that $2 million plan that will be executed in the next year or two by the county, that will also drop the speed limit. That's another example of going back to some of the presentations by Paula Flores, dropping the speed limits down to fit the context of the road, the type of development on the road, but also the type of users on the road. So it's good to see that we're looking at speed first. And I don't think Danny Jorgensen is on here, but obviously the paint saves lives, and some of the work being done in terms of the street murals and street art and different things that are being done in a low cost way to make these streets safer. Obviously changing the speed limit signs and then enforcing it would be one of the best ways to go and get something done quickly and not have to wait around on future funding. Any comments, questions? Lisa, is there anything else we have to add? Go ahead.
Well, I would like to just re-emphasize your attendance at the Vision Zero Leadership Summit. So I want to emphasize leadership. We've got leaders from around the nation coming. We have some special guest speakers and panelists from our own community. I wanted to point out that it's not just some more of what you see already at Livable Roadways, because those are traditionally a lot more of the engineering solutions. We're looking at, we need Vision Zero to be in every department's mind to get there. So it can't just be in the road, works area. So again, it's just next week at 9 a.m. and I promise it's going to be awesome. And then I believe our member Emily Hinsdale had some announcements and requests. And what else? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Hi, I'm Emily Hinsdale with Sidewalk Stompers. I just wanted to let everybody know that October 7th, Wednesday, October 7th is International Walk to School Day. We will be doing a lot of more virtual events this year since we're not trying to promote large gatherings, but we've got a lot of kids out there walking and biking to school, and we're looking to make it a big event to make sure people are paying attention to our youngest pedestrians. Mayor Castor has agreed to do a walk to school video with us, so that you'll be seeing around social media and in the news. We have several other elected officials participating in that. If anybody would like to assist us with any of this, if anybody here wants to do a walk to school video with us, please contact me. I think my email is on all of this, or you can go to sidewalkstompers@gmail.com. We would love any amount of help. We're running it more as an entire month of walk to school this year, since we can't do one large, huge gathering just one day this year. So that was my announcement, October 7th. The other issue that I would like to bring up is that with the ending of the school transportation working group, a lot of the issues that we talked about there have kind of moved into this group. With the new school year, something that we've seen in a lot of schools is in an effort to reduce the number of students entering through one area, a lot of the arrival and dismissal plans have been changed at Hillsborough County Schools. Some of these plans, that's not a big deal. Some of them are very risky for walkers and bikers. And I think that in the absence of something like a school transportation working group, there's a real breakdown between the kind of work that we're doing here and the school district. And the positive communication that had gone back and forth in that scenario has not continued. So that is something that I would like to see this group discuss and potentially work on, is recreating a better form of communication between transportation needs, pedestrian needs, ADA needs, and the school district.
Okay. Well, as the liaison for the school transportation working group, I wasn't aware that we'd had such a slide. So that's, first step is finding out that there is, so we can go to work on that. So I can discuss more ideas and opportunities, and if any of the Livable Roadways members have any suggestions, those are welcome too, because we definitely don't want to see our vulnerable students, more unsafe in this process. And then with your walk to school video as request, can you say more about that, like what you're looking for there? Do you just want to have some parents showing them walking to school?
Sure, I can tell you what we have Mayor Caster doing. She's going to walk to school herself. Hopefully her dog is going to join her, because the idea is to promote walking to school as fun. We're going to talk about health and physical and mental health, and we're going to talk about some safety efforts. So we're going to practice stopping at stop signs and staying on a sidewalk where there is one, using a crosswalk. So she's going to guide a walk to school herself, and that will be the video that is shared. That is pretty much what we're looking at with most of the other elected officials that are involved. We also are hoping to share pictures of students walking and biking to school around the school district. So that would be the kind of thing that we'd be looking for. If anybody wants to make their own video walking to school of themselves, of their child, or just to share a picture.
Okay, great.
Also, when you're doing the video, you may want to add danger, because now we have the COVID going on. People do anything today with the kids. So when you want to do the safety issues, the stop sign, the crosswalk, also you want to add danger.
Yes, I would agree with that. That is certainly one of the things that we have talked about in Sidewalk Stompers is walk in a group. You are always safer when you're in a group for stranger danger, but then also because you are more visible to cars. So the community connectivity is important to us and something we'll be talking about. Thank you. Good point.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Arizona. Lisa, anything else? Obviously, other than the 22nd coming up, that everyone, or if you can, everyone should try to sign up for that. But anything else, Lisa?
Nope, attend the summit and do at least one of the surveys. See you next month.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much. Stay safe, and we'll see you next month. If not, next Tuesday. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, have a good day.
You too.